everybody, I'm Scotty J. For the last week, Rock Titan Television has had the privilege of following John Oates on his book signing tour for his memoirs, Change of Seasons. We started out in New York City, and then we just finished in Philadelphia, although their book tour goes cross-country. But we want you to be able to see what that experience was like as John comes back to his hometown of Philadelphia. We caught up with some of his fans. We also got to have a chance encounter with legendary folk radio personality Gene Shea. And you all know him as the founder of the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and he's been in the scene for decades. And it was really cool to see him and John interact, recollecting some old memories of when John and Daryl were first starting out. After that, we get on to a awesome interview with the co-author for Change of Seasons, Chris Epting. So make sure you stick around for that. I hope you all have enjoyed this documentary that we've done for John Oates' memoirs, Change of Seasons, between New York City and Philadelphia. Let us know what you think on our website, www.rocktitan.tv, and go out to all our social media, Facebook, Instagram. Just Google us, Rock Titan Television. You can't miss it. We look forward to your feedback. I am here with probably one of John Oates' youngest fans. I have to ask you, how long have you been into John Oates, Hall & Oates? I'm assuming you've listened to some of their music? Yeah?
Yes, probably since I was about 3 or 4.
Now, why did you purchase Change of Seasons?
Well, we've listened to Hall & Oates forever. My mom's been a fan since she was in high school, and you know, she kind of got me and my siblings into them.
Okay. Are you going to have that signed? How do you feel about, getting to meet him?
Really excited.
Yeah?
Really excited, yeah.
Nervous at all?
Yes. Yeah.
How excited are you?
I'm really excited.
All right.
Laid me down, pounding on the floor. Laid me down, pounding on the floor. Laid me down, pallet down, soft and low.
John was the easiest, most collaborative subject to have. I wish I could even make a joke about it. It was the best. Absolute best. Yeah. I've written 30 books. That's the most fun experience. It's never like work. Absolute joy.
Remember when we came up to your radio show in the middle of the night and we played songs that we had just written? You don't remember? How long ago? I do. And you were in that little building right off Rittenhouse Square, right on 19th.
Oh, yeah.
We went up to his thing, and me and Dale, we carried his piano up. And we played songs before the whole Oates. And you let us play in the middle of the night.
What did I know?
On the air.
Maybe you did know something.
Well, I knew that.
On his show.
There were stars in these guys' eyes. I saw his shit. Well, I had Tom Waits up there, and he did. And they actually rented a piano for him when I was at MMR to do a whole set on my show.
Rock Titan Nation, we are here at Barnes Noble in Philadelphia, and I am here with the real man, the man that was the brains behind Change of Seasons, co-written by John Oates. Chris Epting, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for your very generous
introduction. Well, I heard that you actually had to drag John kicking and screaming into this project. He wanted nothing to do with writing a book.
Well, I don't think it was that severe.
I'm kidding.
But he did need a little bit of prodding. I mean, I brought it up to him after a series of interviews we did.
Right.
And I said, and the interviews were always very deep and involved. We always had great chemistry. So I said to him, you should think about doing your story. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, how would it work? He didn't know that much about the publishing business. And I described it. And he said, you know what? If you want to do this, we'll do it. Okay. And he was ready, and I was ready, and we had a really good time.
Now, how long have you known John?
I first interviewed him probably about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So not too long, but long enough where we had a sense of each other. And he's been very nice in saying that when I would talk to him, that I had sort of an innate sense of what he was doing, either solo or with Daryl or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan of his. I mean, I think he's a very talented artist, and I was been a long time.
Yeah, he's done all right. He's done all right.
He's okay.
He's got a few accolades.
But we always had these great conversations that I think we both felt like that if we did a book, it would allow things to really there was a little bit of trust already built in there. so that he would be comfortable sharing things. That's the one thing when you write a memoir with somebody.
Sure.
They have to be willing to really kind of
Well,
come
it's
clean
intimate.
with you.
It's
It is.
intimate.
It is. You have dozens, if not hundreds of conversations.
Right.
And they've got to be willing to part with these stories and these facts and thoughts and impressions.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy all the time. But thankfully for he and I, it was pretty easy. And he's a great writer. And I could give him little sketches and he would color those in. I'd have a little story idea. Remember we talked about this, and I would just put very little basic things in it. He would take it and write to it, and blew me away. I mean, he's, like I said, a really good writer.
Yeah, now when I talked to him last week, I mean, he had explained how he really did keep a chronology and, you know, all the documentation of all these experiences that he had over the years. What was that like for you, you know, to be able to go in and see all that? Like you just talked about it, I mean, there's that trust factor. But to actually dig into all these details of his life over the last 30-plus years, no one knows until they're going to read this book.
His whole life. I mean, he was like all 69 years. I mean, he started from when he was born.
Okay, yeah.
He would share all kinds of things, and then he says, you know, he goes, I kept diaries from the 1970s.
Right.
And a few days later, this box arrives at my house, and it's a copy of all the diaries, thousands of pages.
Right.
So I organized them on my floor, and I would go through and find little things that I thought were intriguing, and I would ask him about them. He would say, that didn't happen. I would say, well, here, August 4th, 1974,
Embellish.
it happened. You know?
Right.
And he would go, oh, yeah, and I would sort of lead him, guide him through that moment. He calls it regressive therapy, and I think he's right, because what would happen is we would have these really long conversations where he would just sort of be, I'd say, block everything out. Let's talk about that day or that week or that event or whatever. And he would go there, you know, and in the absence of any distractions, he was able to really channel those moments. And sometimes it's just a matter of somebody putting you in that space where you're comfortable enough to do it. The comfort level's got to be there, or you're not going to get good stuff out of somebody.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we had a nice group through most of this and all of it, and he was able to you know, find and share those moments.
Yeah. It's wild because you got to see everything before anybody else. Now everyone's going to see your creation as an author. What's that like for you, knowing that,
it's always
you know,
weird. It's like anything. It's what I imagine musicians feel too when they release music. I mean, you know what you've done.
Right.
You know, I always tell my kids, if we're in a Barnes Noble, if I see one of my books, and my son writes too, one of his books, we know where it came from. Right. I remember the yellow pad where I might have written down an idea, and then you know what it had to do to get it to a shelf.
Right.
So you know all that stuff, you know, and so you have way deeper appreciation and really intimate knowledge of where it came from.
Right.
So it's exciting, but it's a little nerve-wracking too. You walk in tonight, everybody's got their books.
Right.
You want them to like what you've done.
Sure.
You want them to appreciate it and kind of get where you were coming from.
You get a lot of gratification from that, knowing that these people are like so geeked out of their minds to get this thing. I noticed you were signing quite a few books yourself.
Sure, which is flattering. And yeah, I think as much as I don't care so much what a critical review might be. When you see people that have a book in their hands, you want them to enjoy it.
Sure.
You know, people only have so much money today. If they're going to invest in what you did, it's a big deal. And so you want them to get pleasure out of it.
Right.
And so far, you know, knock on wood, people seem to like it. Objectively, you know, they have said really nice things about it. And
I've heard amazing things. I mean, you know, as John makes all his rounds, talking to all these different media outlets, you know, everyone's kind of queuing in on various stories that he had throughout. And
the fact that we made it like a collection of short stories versus one seamless narrative.
That's smart.
We did very consciously.
That's smart.
Because we decided, like in today's day and age, from just, you know, the way people read, they want things sort of in shorter pieces. The attention spans aren't what they were.
Right.
And you can open that book, I think, almost anywhere and either read long or read a couple of pages and just get something out of it. Every story has a distinct beginning, middle, and end.
All right.
You know, so you don't have to get... Yeah, sometimes if I'm reading a long memoir of 400 pages and it's one story, if I don't read it for a while, I kind of forget where I am and I got to get back into it. With this, it starts and stops so frequently that it doesn't... You can read it, you know, in any kind of timing that you want to do it.
Okay. Now let me ask you this as a writer, because like, you know, when I'm doing film and stuff like that, you're always filming extra and there's so much left on the cutting room floor. Was there a whole lot left on the cutting room floor when you did this? Yeah?
There's a ton. I mean,
and you get to know all that. No one else has a clue.
It's all that. I mean, there's 5 or 6 different covers they designed that are all really cool that I wish people could see. We didn't cut a lot out, but there is a lot of stuff we didn't include because it felt superfluous. And we've talked about maybe another thing down the line. For the
I was gonna
paperback
ask you about
version, we
that.
might put extra in.
Okay.
But John's talked about wanting to do the
Volume
next
2.
phase of his life.
Yeah, very cool. Very
which
cool.
I think I hope we'll do.
All right.
But
Well, you stole my last question because that's what I was going to ask you. As far as what's next, do you see any other projects that you're going to do like this with John? Writing
Totally.
that next
No,
volume?
I mean, there's two things actually. One of which is this idea of picking up his life where we left it and playing it up to present day.
Okay.
Which I think we'll do. Another thing is, looking at his diaries, to me, they're very artful. His handwritten diaries are really beautiful, and they really kind of, capture this moment. So I said to him, what we should do is let's create a single volume reproduction of your diaries, where I'll pick out the things that kind of tell a story,
Right.
and we'll create that version for fans that want to have
Very
a copy
cool.
of the actual diaries. And you can write modern day notes about what you were thinking back then.
Right.
Kind of anchor it in today. So
Right.
we're going to do that for next year. That we're doing. We
Awesome.
decided that. So-
Awesome. All right. Well, Rock Titan fans, here we are with Chris Epting, the brains behind Change of Seasons.
I don't know about
that
that,
put all of John's crazy stories together. Yeah. No, Chris, thank you so much,
Thank
man.
you, man.
It's been
Thanks
a
for
pleasure.
hanging out with us and documenting.
And congratulations. Congratulations on everything to you and John.
Thank you.
I know it's very exciing.
Mr.
All right.
Host has been wonderful. It's been
Yes,
an
he
honor.
is. Yes, he is.
Thanks,
All
you
right,
guys.
Cool.